And we're live streaming to you from the footsteps of New York City. We are Music Matters with Jason Tramm. Thank you so much for joining us for a unique podcast community where we explore the triumphs and challenges of the performing arts world as seen through the eyes of distinguished colleagues. Thank you for helping us grow. We recently had 1,450 subscribers on YouTube, and we're also growing on Facebook, on Instagram, and very soon we're going to be on the major podcast streaming sites. You'll see us on Netflix, all the big ones, so keep an eye on that one as well. You can also hear us on Saturday afternoons from 11:30 to noon on WMCA in New York City, so please join us there as well. We have a wonderful guest for you today. We have Melanie Penn, an independent singer-songwriter who's got influences in indie pop, folk rock, alternative country style, and she's also an acclaimed studio musician as well. She's released 5 studio albums, and we're delighted she can join us. Welcome, Melanie.
Hello, Jason. Thanks so much for having me.
So glad to finally catch up with you. I know it's been a crazy time for us all in this period, and can't wait to get back to the stage.
I know, that's right. I think by the fall, we'll see healthy touring going in the fall. I don't know about stage productions, though. So many casts haven't been able to rehearse.
Yeah, it's been, I had one friend who was on the show, Joy Hermelin. Joy had just got her 3rd Broadway show. Just third. She's been in the business a long time. She was on a Broadway show. They were in final dress rehearsals, and they're like, pack up your stuff, go home, we'll mail you all your equipment, and it closed.
Oh my gosh, heartbreaking. It's been so heartbreaking for so many people.
And we've all had, every single one of us, every one artist has had the same thing. We've all had it takes years to book our schedules, to put our albums out, to work on our songs, put them out there. And then all of a sudden, in a flash, the world has changed.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So why don't we go back? We're going to get into the COVID thing a little later on in the show. But why don't we start with your journey as an artist? Did you always know you wanted to be a singer?
I always knew I wanted to be a singer. The most circuitous thing about my artistic journey is that I wasn't always sure what format I would be in. So I was trained classically, and I went to conservatory and thought I was going into a kind of career, and then that wasn't quite right. And so I segued into musical theater, and then I landed where I am now, which is as a singer-songwriter, and I'm so happy. It just took me a long time to figure it out.
I love the journey. We call it finding your yellow brick road. So
yeah, that's right.
It's amazing how the Lord takes you on different ways until you find that path where you know you should be.
Yes, that's so true. And I mean, everything kind of informed the next thing. It's like when I arrived in musical theater, I had all of this classical vocal training, which a lot of my colleagues didn't have. And then when I arrived in singer-songwriter world, I had storytelling ability from my musical theater days that was unique. I brought that uniqueness to my singer-songwriter work. So it's like Steve Jobs says that thing, stay curious, just follow your curiosity. And I have done that.
I love it. That's wonderful. We were talking with one of the shows with Christiane Knoll, who was talking about the difference between singing on the breath and singing on the words, how she was trained in operetta and how to make that transition back and forth. And it's a really tricky thing to do, right? I mean, I guess as a singer-songwriter, singing on the words has got to be everything.
Yeah, I think it is definitely everything. I think it depends too, where you're training is. I feel fortunate that I had voice teachers throughout my singing life who are always do not forget the story you're telling. Never listen to your own voice singing so much that you kind of are only thinking about the sounds you're making and forget about your story. It doesn't matter what language you're singing in, doesn't matter what it is, what the material is. So maybe God was always kind of setting it up oh, she's going to be singing her own song someday. She better know what the text is and be focused on the text.
Do you still study? Do you still keep your voice in line? How do you keep your voice in line in the midst of a career?
That's a great question. I definitely have my tried and true exercises that I do every day. And those are just they happen automatically. And I will say, though, if someone needed me to get out of bed and sing a high C. I don't know if I could do that anymore. I used to be in that kind of vocal shape, but I'm just not anymore. And that's okay.
You know, the voice changes with the body, right? It's constantly changing. And the smart singers, people don't realize, maybe the audience doesn't realize, that the smart singers always have teachers and coaches and people just monitoring where things are, monitoring where the technique is to keep us healthy.
Yes, the check-in. But there's no doubt that when I was singing operatic material, I needed a different kind of, I needed to be in different kind of shape than for what I do now. There's just no question about that. And so there's things that are like easier, you know, there's different demands in the singer-songwriter world than there are in the opera world, but vocal demand is way less. There's no question the vocal demand on a singer-songwriter is less.
Well, the microphones help a lot. The opera singers have to do it all acoustically.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Just
and just range.
I mean, different type of singing.
But pop songs, singer-songwriter songs, just the range itself is much more condensed. It's like I'm rarely singing outside of, you know, it's rare that I'll sing a whole octave in a pop song or a singer-songwriter song. And in operatic material, you're in an octave and a half, probably. So I think just range-wise, that'd be an interesting exercise. Sometimes I think about, gosh, I should go back to like my senior recital material and just be like, could I still sing this?
So tell us, what were some of the pieces on the program?
Senior recital. I sang Mozart arias. I sang
Can't go wrong with those.
I sang from Marriage of Figaro. I sang what is that? It was a song cycle. I Hate Music. I think it's Bernstein. Is that a singer-songwriter? Is that a Bernstein song cycle? I sang that. Bernstein. I sang some German art songs. Sang some Handel. I'd have to go back. But I was very much like Mozart soprano singer. That's what I hear that in your voice and your song.
I hear that in your singer-songwriting songs. I hear the classical training. You can just tell the line of the voice it's there. It all stays.
Well, you have an ear for it, so you probably pick up on it. Because you know the last thing you want as a pop singer is for the average listener to be like, "I think they sing opera." No, you know what I mean?
That's usually that means they have a huge wobbly vibrato. It's like, no, that's not what opera means. It just means they sing really well legato.
But you see, you have training, so like you can probably hear it like, she's not just like winging it out there.
No. I always look for artists who have complete artists. I want to have these conversations with artists who cross I love the fact that you cross those genre lines because I think so much applies. So what in your training do you find really helpful in your career?
I'll say stamina has been huge for me. So the fact that I can be in the studio and sing vocals all day is like once I went to Nashville and started singing in the studio in Nashville, people were really shocked by that. And it would always be like, do you need a break? Like, okay, so we've been singing for an hour. Do you want to come back tomorrow? And I'd be like, singing for an hour? Like, let's keep going. So I think the stamina and endurance is rare in the singer-songwriter world. And it also transferred to touring. I think like I can, be on planes all day, do a show, pack up, be on planes all day the next day, do another show. Like there's something about the classical/musical theater boot camp that sets you up very well for a career.
I've done touring opera companies, but I don't know how the Broadway people do it. Man, that bus and truck stuff. I did it for a week. I would do like 10 opera performances down in Florida, South Carolina, then go to West Virginia. And I'm not a singer. I'm a conductor, so I can just have a cup of coffee and be ready to rock and roll. But if the singers, man, it's just so tough on the voice. I don't know how the Broadway people do it.
Oh, I mean, it's like you really got to know what you're doing, and people do burn out. Gosh, I'm so blessed. I haven't had any issues, and I hope to keep it that way.
Well, keep on. That technique certainly grounds you, and that I know I'm
Yes.
46 now. So when I was a kid and conducting orchestras, and I never really thought about the size of my gesture. Everything was large. But now that and I was always assisting for 70-year-olds and who were like master maestros, and they were all conducting very small, and I would kind of laugh backstage with my colleagues. Now I understand, because your muscles can't do the things they did when they're. You have to have the technique and
Wow.
the focus and the training, and it's probably the same with the singers. Is you work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, I hope so. But don't they say conductors are like some of the healthiest people out there? Because it's like we so rarely are moving our arms, like moving our own body weight that way. I mean, always heard that.
Yeah, because we're in constantly emotion. Yeah, in a rehearsal, 2-hour rehearsal, I'm constantly, gesticulating and making motions,
Yes.
and it's really, but yeah, it's a healthy thing, especially a
And
3-hour
that's your
opera.
heart.
A 3-hour opera
That's
is
like
like
blood pumping in and
twice
out of
as
your heart.
exhausting mentally as it is physically. It's like the mental concentration. But like anything else, it's just like you do it, and it's you just forget all about what you're doing, and you just do the job, and you lose yourself in the
Yeah.
music, and that's the process that I love. That process of working with colleagues.
Yeah. Wow. So you enjoy singers.
Oh, my whole career has been working with opera singers and with choruses and with singers, both professional and amateur. And I just love the process with each, and getting people to give their
Wow.
best, and getting people to
Yes.
unlocking their potential to give their best.
So do you coach as well?
I do. I've done a fair amount of opera coaching on arias, and especially when we're in production. Like, I've conducted a lot of opera. So what I love working with the singers to get them to think, to overcome their technique. It's like opera singers are so there's such technical driven music that often there can be a barrier, and finding the barrier to that
Yes.
expression. Right, it's the
Yes.
and regardless of genre, it's all about expression. It's like we have to have good technique. I always say that artistry is the combination of technique and expression, and it has to be equal measure.
Yes. Well, and of course, you want your technique to be so steady that you can kind of like throw it out the window and be free. I mean,
On
it's
a
kind of
great
what we
night,
were
you may
talking
not
about a
need it
couple
as
seconds
much.
ago.
But when you're not
Yeah.
feeling well, when you're like not 100%, that's when you need it 100%.
Yes. Yes.
So when did you
Well,
start writing?
that's a great thing I learned too.
Keep going. You finish.
I start. Well, no. That was another great thing about like classical training, being able to perform when you're sick. And during the COVID era, maybe we don't do that as much anymore, but being able to sing through sickness, sing through a cold, sing through illness, that's something definitely training gave to me. And it's very rare that I feel like, oh, I can't sing through this.
Has to be laryngitis on
Very
the
rare.
chords, right? Like an extreme.
That's right.
Colds.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
We all train to go right through that, and that's the thing. When did you first start writing music?
I started writing pretty late in my life. I was in my mid-20s actually. So I was already in musical theater world, and I was in New York, kind of like climbing up the ranks of the like New York theater scene. And I started to be just so unhappy. And I started to feel like, I think there's something else here. I think that I could sing my own songs. And then once I would end up on these tours, and I'd be doing 8 shows a week, and the same words, the same songs every single night. And I sensed on a very deep level that I had my own words to sing. And like that happened in conjunction with feeling, it wasn't exactly burnout with musical theater. It was just like something was changing where I felt I didn't belong anymore.
That still small voice on the back of your head, right? Just kind of, it's there.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And I just heard another another interview. A guy broke into stand-up comedy kind of late in his life. And he described it. He said, look, the baby's coming, be born, like it's coming. There's nothing you can do about it. So if you have something in the back of your mind in your artist's life, like a book or a this or like a change of direction, like that baby's gonna come. Like you better just like sooner you realize it, the whole lot easier it's gonna be for you. And I thought I had an experience very similar to that. It's like I was going to start writing songs. I could avoid it. I could procrastinate about it. I could rationalize my way out of it, but I was going to start writing songs.
Now, do you start on piano or guitar? What's your process for writing the music?
I started at first on guitar, but now I don't really have a method. Like, I'll be honest, the best songwriting tool I have is going on walks. Like
you and Beethoven.
Really? Oh, did Beethoven write on walks?
Constantly. He would go in the country and then he would have his notepad with him and he would jot down an idea and he had to be out there. He walked a lot.
I think it's the motion. Like, I think it's something about your legs and the rhythm of walking and like being in your body that does something to the brain. Like, I think it makes the brain very creative.
Certainly keeps us, beautiful scenery inspires us and we catches an idea. Yeah. And what comes first to you? Is it the lyrics or is it a concept? Is it or is it a musical idea, the melody? What's or is it all of the above?
It's all of the above. I do have concept ideas, so I'll keep a little list of like, oh, a song about this would be cool. Like if there's a concept that I think would be really interesting. So then when I'm stuck, I'll go back to my list of concepts and be like, oh, remember you wanted to write a song about X, try that. But the best days are ones where like a hook with lyric lines come together. So like there'll be a melody with lyric lines, and that's like the kernel.
The crown jewel, right? It just happens. Now, you've gotten a lot of it. I was on your Spotify and I was looking at your YouTube. You've gotten a lot of people listening to your music and engaging with your music and building a nice fan base. What's it like to watch something you create come to life and have a life of its own?
Well, thanks for saying that, because I just want it to like grow more. I'm always like, I probably need to stop and smell the roses more.
We all do. I think that's part of the process of artists.
Yeah. It's slow, right? It's very slow. I think sometimes I ask God, I'm like, God, am I just, on the wrong path? And because even I still have doubts about how long things take, or am I as successful as my peers, or, am I at the level of fame I thought I would be? It's easy to kind of be haunted by those things. But continuously, there'll be a sign, like things are happening, Mel, keep going. And like metrics will go up just a little bit. So it feels good, but it can't be the only driver because it's never enough. It's like, it's so hard. Those audience drivers will never be enough to keep you going.
And I say this is like the era of the indie artist, right? Because back in the olden days, the record companies would put out plastic artists, and who knows if that was a real or if they're fake. But it seems like the indie audiences really want to know who the people are. They'll go on there and look at their websites. They really want to make a connection, like a genuine connection with the artist. What's it like being an indie artist today?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And what also fuels that is social media. Like people feeling like people tell me all the time, like they want to know what I'm eating for lunch. They want to know, what kind of rental car I'm driving. And it's the whole like wanting to know you, like not just the songs, they want to know you, what you think. And I believe that social media has created that dynamic. It was probably always there, but social media made it a reality. Like you can go to your favorite artist and like see what they're doing any day of the week if they're posting. So it's pressure and it's also power.
Yeah, it's interesting. You could we all know that social media is a double-edged sword. Certainly, it can be very damaging, or it can be really used as a tool to bring people together and unite and inform, and it's certainly how it's used. I always I have a lot of artists on, and I ask things like, what would it be like if Herbert Van Karajan or if Domingo, or if they had social media and we knew what they were eating, if Maria Callas or Joan Baez or Robert Plant. I mean, there was an air of mystery around artists back then. It's very interesting how different it is today.
It is very different. And when I'm really leaning, I go through seasons where I'm really leaning into social media and I'm engaging every day and I'm on Insta story talking to people, and I see the difference it makes. Like I see the energy back in a good way. But then there's seasons where for whatever reason I'm just not engaged, and I start to feel like, man, I gotta be engaged. I gotta be on my phone. Like I gotta be talking to people and letting them know I'm still around. I can't just depend on the songs doing that for me.
Certainly the songs are out there. They're out there all the time, and they're out there. People experience them, and then they get really interested in the artist, and it starts that conversation back and forth. What are some interesting, just some of the, over the years, some of the interesting stories that your fans have shared with you, or the way that your music has affected them?
Oh gosh, well those are the best stories, right? I mean, gosh, I have one of my first longtime fans listened to my album when he was in Iraq. Like he went to Iraq and was part of Desert Storm, and says he connected with my first album so meaningfully in Desert Storm. He's a fan for life. And there was something about like the purity of the music in contrast to like where he was that kind of like got him through. And then there's all sorts of other stories like, coming alongside people in trial. That's something that you can't really do as a musical theater artist. Like you can't really come alongside people in their sufferings as much. When I feel that in my songwriter work, I'm able to do that much more easily.
I find the great singer-songwriters, they just connect with motion instantly, right? That's what I look for. I've had the blessing of getting to meet so many. We're a part of Reverb Nation, and they send me hundreds and thousands of artists that I go through, and I listen for with a singer-songwriter, I want to be moved instantly. Whether it's the voice just grabs you, whether it's a word or turn of phrase, or it can be this most simple melody, but the emotion has to be direct and instant.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so true. And like songs are doing that more and more. Sorry.
It's all right. Get yourself a drink of water.
Excuse me.
We're on a.
No, I'm good.
I love the podcast format because it's so loose and free, and
yes,
so
I think songs are doing that more. Oh, go ahead. We're on a little bit of a delay. Go ahead.
You're the important one. We're on the Zoom delay. It's okay.
I was just gonna say, I think you're hitting on something very real about the emotion in songwriter in the songwriter world. And I think it's true even with the volume. Like the human voice is turned up so high now in pop songs and songwriter songs.
True.
And I think it's because the singing voice just carries all that emotion, and that's what people want.
And it's direct and it's clear. Sometimes it's just piano, sometimes it's just guitar. That's all you need. And they were very lightly accompanied or something lightly scored. How did you find your voice as a singer-songwriter? Tell us about that journey, because anytime you start a new venture, there's growing pains, learning. We learn so much.
Yeah. I kind of wish I could go back to those beginning days, because when you're just starting something, there's no rules yet. Like you don't have any rules for yourself, and you haven't been successful in any way. So there's like no expectation on you. But the most helpful thing for me has been like, what songs do I like? So I try to write songs that I like. And then I also try to write songs that I can't find. So like right now, I'm very focused on writing like kind of like mid-tempo poppy songs that are optimistic. And you can't find many of those in pop music right now. So I try to develop in the vacuum, like, what am I not seeing, and can I write into what I'm not seeing in music? And I don't know where that'll take me, but it like kind of gives me the songs that I want to hear.
Very nice. Thanks for sharing that. It's really interesting to see the process behind the artist. I always enjoy that. I always like looking back, like peeling back the curtain and seeing how things are put together. How about themes and topics? How do you choose what themes and topics you explore? I know that faith is very important in your journey as reading your bio and listening to your music. So tell us about that, and tell us how your faith has been deepened by your music.
Yes, that's a great question. Some themes kind of naturally emerge. one pervading theme that just is writing about nature and fitting nature into pop songs. So like I have a song I have a song on one of my albums called The Sun Song, and it's about how like the sun tells you it's going to rise again the next day. And that's definitely a theme that's resonant for me as a Christian, because Christians believe that Jesus rose again and like resurrection is a reality in this world. So like I wrote about the sun, but for me it was really a song about God, like being alive and after a dark night rising again. I've written other songs. Oh gosh, I'm blanking now, but like fitting kind of high-minded theological concepts into little songs about nature is something I love to do. And I also really love to just write happy, optimistic songs. Like sometimes I feel like that's the most countercultural thing an artist can do. Like
an act of rebellion. I love that.
Yes. Like bring something peppy, like something honestly peppy and lighthearted.
It's rare these days. We either get like emo, like dark and,
yes,
singing in a black room, that type of thing, or we get super like fake glitzy. I've got 4 kids, so I listen to a lot of pop music, from rock and roll to pop music, and I'm always kind of like, the teacher in me is always listening for, why is this music so popular? Like I don't hear much in it. There's not a lot of content, but I get the idea of it's fun, and it's kind of like, I tell my daughters, I'm like, I understand it's good, because they listen to art music as well. They've been around classical music their whole life, but they choose to listen to pop and rock, and just like everyone, we're all engaged in many different types of music. It's like some music's meant for immediate consumption. Right, it's like there's no nutrition, like a McDonald's cheeseburger. Right, it's you eat it, it's good, and it's gone. Yes. But like songs that are deep, that people craft, like you do with your music, it's a different endeavor entirely.
Well, and I want to look. I see the same things that everyone else sees in pop music. Like I see that there's a lot of vapid music out there, and that the text isn't uplifting anybody, and it's kind of like lowest common denominator, especially when you think about like all of the sexual overtones and like life is just about sex and gratifying yourself. That's
money,
a pretty pervasive theme in pop music. Money, yes, exactly. And so I feel I can't complain about it if I'm not willing to contribute something. So I would much rather work in the pop genre and contribute something, and then like, complain about it like, oh, it's just like vapid pop music. Because like you said, this is what in a lot of ways like people want to listen to pop songs. That's what they want. Like the ear gravitates toward it, and young people, kids will always listen to pop music, and we're not ever going to be away from it.
I was like this is a funny story. I was guest conducting, whenever I guest conduct in Europe, I'm always in Romania or Bulgaria or wherever I am at the time. This time I was in Albania conducting, and I was out with all the orchestra players for a cup of coffee between rehearsals, and every like cafe, you were sitting with all these artists, and it only plays electro pop music in the background. It's like that's always on. It's like, and that's assumed. It's like it's just part of the wallpaper of life, I guess. It's just like even professional artists and classical people, it's just there. And I teach an introduction course to Western music for non-majors at Seton Hall, and I'm always fascinated by the amount of students who only listen to like pop music, and it's just kind of wallpaper, and it's always on their stereo or their headphones, but they don't really listen because it's just there.
Yeah. That happens too. Like you never want to be background music. Like in some ways I feel like background music is the worst thing we ever did. And
music.
it's sad. It's sad that that's the way it is, but
Stravinsky, I love this quote from Stravinsky. He was such a contrarian. He was a spiky dude, and even in his music. And he said something like, just hearing is no great virtue. A duck hears.
Yeah.
It's like listening critically, listening deeper, finding the meaning in things. I think, but I think for
Wow.
most people, as they get older, they learn that there's like deeper. A lot of people may start with rock, but then they sneak into jazz, or they like seek into indie singer songwriters, people that have a real message in life.
I think so. I hope so. I mean, I think there must be something about the nervous system too. Like the nervous system starts to crave like something a little more soothing. Like I love listening to classical music and just like violins and like something about it is like much easier on my nervous system than like hip hop with a bunch of bass. Like it hits your body in a different
Get
way.
up and move.
And
Get
like
up and move.
yeah, and like one is a little more, it's like meant to be a little more aggravating, like a little bit more motivating, and the other just for some reason can like be more soothing. So I know there's all sorts of theories about that, like the frequencies and like how drums are hitting the body, and like I know there's a lot out there to be learned.
Well, it's certainly interesting, and certainly I'm always fascinated by the way that music interacts and the music reacts, and I love to watch how young people are interacting with music, because I think that, that this is the future of music, and watching where their tastes and hopefully we keep putting great music out there. I always teach the difference. I'm like, find good music. Every genre's got good music. Every genre's got bad music,
Yeah.
and it's always been like that since the dawn of time.
Yeah, so at one time, wasn't Mozart considered a super scandalous pop writer?
Well,
Like in his day, wasn't he considered like the pop writer?
I don't know about pop, but he was certainly he wrote music. See, he didn't really think that way. But in Mozart's time, there was no like, I am a great genius. He wouldn't have thought he was a great genius. He would have thought he was just very good at his job, and his job was to write music that people could enjoy. So it wasn't until Beethoven came along, he said, my music will last forever. Mozart probably wouldn't have thought his music would have been around 300 years later. He wouldn't have had that. They wrote music for the now, right? And same with Bach. Bach was writing music for the now. He was writing music for church. He was writing every week. He was writing a cantata for church. He was writing his pieces to be performed. And he just thought he was and he actually said, he goes, if people put in the work I put in, they'll be like me. He was vastly understating the genius of his gifts, but even in his own time, he was well respected, but he wasn't remembered after his death. His music was sort of forgotten for a while. So sometimes, but the Romantics came along, and they promulgated the artist as genius and this kind of like this new aesthetic. But it's interesting to see how music is kind of thought of at its time, and how artists are thought of in their time. And classical music is so much older. We've had centuries to dissect it and to think about it. I'm always interested in musical trends of today, because pop music moves so fast.
Pop music does, and even in terms of like trends, like the trends change so quickly. Do you mean? Like it evolves so quickly?
I guess I say pop music. In contemporary music, the trends are constantly evolving at lightning speed.
Yeah.
But it seems like the singer-songwriters, they seem they have their niche, and people really, that's become a very popular genre on Spotify. And I really, I love listening to different singer-songwriters and kind of getting to know ones and finding ones I like their voices and their content. And you're one of them. I was really impressed. I was like, wow, she has a different kind of, so many of the singer-songwriters are pretty dark. They're pretty introspective that way. And I really enjoy the kind of the difference in the musical, the way you bring your music to life.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so intentional, because I am aware of that too, that a lot of singer-songwriters can be a little bit dark, or very much like, oh, I want to, drag out my inner demons, like work out my demons in a song. And I think there's a place for that, because everyone has demons. Everyone has the shadow, and to hear that in a song can be helpful. Like, okay, I'm not the only one. like I'm not the only one who struggles with these dark thoughts. But in the songwriter realm, I feel that is people are doing that very well. So I was like, okay, I want to do something else, which kind of brought me to what I do, which my producer and I kind of joke around. I call them hopeful anthems. That's my genre. If there were a hopeful anthem genre on iTunes, that would be me.
Well, put that in your tags, right? Put that in the tags. You own that tag now.
Yeah. Yes, hopeful
And we need
anthems.
that
That's
more
my
than ever.
genre.
In this past year, with all the devastation we've faced, and you know,
know.
that those hopeful anthems become ways that people could move on. Where would we be without the recordings, without the Spotify, without the YouTube, without the recordings and the Netflix? Where
Yeah.
would we be without our artists if we had these lockdowns and all the challenges of COVID?
Well, and in some ways, we kind of saw in 2020 how our culture totally disintegrated any artistic events. It's like, think about it. The only time you really, I mean, if you're not, I guess it can happen at work, but like, when else are you sitting next to someone who might not have anything in common with you? You don't look at life the same way. You don't have the same background, but you can take in a show or some kind of like piece of entertainment and feel like, oh, I love that too. Hey, are you there? Did I lose you a little bit?
I'm still here. Our cameras, we'll get that. They can still hear us talking, so you just keep
Oh,
going.
that's okay.
You're on the screen.
But I just think, we kind of saw what happens when that aspect of our culture goes away. And between, the summer, a very chaotic summer going into like a very chaotic election cycle, like so much fragmentation, so much division.
Oh, yeah,
and
there were some problems in the
I
election.
think, yeah, like
What a
like,
year that
I
was.
think that if we had had our arts institutions, our healthy arts institutions going, like I think that it could have been a much healthier time for us, and we could have processed a lot more together than like so fragmented. That's just what I think.
I agree with you. It was such a challenge. I mean, the double whammy of COVID plus the ferocious political scene.
Yes.
And I mean,
Yes.
just the anger and the vitriol. I couldn't even turn on the media. It's just like, every side was so angry at each other. And I'm like, we're the same country. We have to find a way to at
Yes.
least see opposing point of views and listen. And the fact that it was like no one was listening. Everyone was just screaming at each other. I'm like, the cognitive dissonance was challenging.
But think about it. It's like, who brings everybody together? Like Dolly Parton. It's like, who's bringing everyone together? It's our artists. And I think that's like it's a weighty responsibility of artists to like bring people together. But it's like, you take artists out of society, which is what happened during COVID. And it's like, our houses of worship closed too. But it's like, even if you don't go to church, like you probably do have your favorite artists, and going to a concert or a show feels like church to you, most likely. So I'm excited for those institutions to come back, for our arts institutions
wheels
to come back.
are starting to turn, right? It's amazing. I tell my different choirs and orchestras, I'm like, I just wish our Congress could be like a choir. A choir, everyone comes together, different cultures, languages, ethnicity, you name it.
Yes.
Everyone's so different. 100 people can come in a room, and then we all have a common purpose, is to just
Yes.
give yourself up to part of the collective, make music, join that kind of that meta, like beautiful kind of, we're all making art together. We're all kind of giving
Yes.
some of ourselves, and we're working together for a common cause. It's such a beautiful metaphor.
It's incredible. I think they've even done studies. It's like, what would happen if Congress opened every day with a song, or like they had to sing one day together or something. It's like, just that act of like joining your voices
They might
together
murder
is
each
like
other these
so
days.
human. Or it could be like transformative. Who knows?
Hopefully, I'm sure it would be. I mean, I think a lot of
Congress needs you. Congress needs you, Jason.
we have had Barry Black speak at Ocean Grove many times, and he's the chaplain of the Senate, and he's such a brilliant. He's got this basso voice. He's this bass, and he's also a great singer. He'll start singing at him, and the guy is like so dynamic. And I'm like, if he can't get them together, nobody can.
Wow. Makes me sad.
Well, it's just, I think it's part of the rhetoric. I think whenever you see like the actually like videos of them together, they're usually pretty collegial. It's just, I think a lot of it's theatrics and kind of like partisan kind of games, showmanship.
Yeah, I've wondered about that too. Like, are we all getting punked? Like they're at the bar, like having beers.
It's
and,
like
meanwhile,
one's the
they're
Jets,
serving up
one's the
reality
Giants.
TV.
Yeah. Everything's reality TV these days, right? It's everyone's trying to get more clicks and more views and to be salacious in their own way.
That's right.
It's part of the society. So
That's right.
tell us about your COVID journey. When COVID hit, everything gets canceled. How did you process? I've talked with like 168 artists so far, and 168 people have given me 168 different ways that they processed the grief, they processed the challenges, and then they found a kind of purpose and a way to maintain their artistic output or go a different direction. I had opera singers doing TikTok videos. I've had, you name it, I've seen it. But how did it work for you?
I mean, I definitely wrote more, and I did put out an album during COVID that I didn't expect to put out. So I put out an album in October of 2020 and made another one. So like I have another album. The first singles will start to launch in January. July.
Something to look forward to very soon, a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's right. So it didn't slow me down in terms of writing or making music in the studio. One thing it did was clarify for me that I'm not interested in quitting. I think a lot of my artist friends, it's like suddenly they had no shows and it was like they reassessed and they were like, you know what? Like now's the time to start the start the website building business or start doing lawn care. I mean, I had friends really take a detour, and I did not feel that way at all. Like if anything, I felt like, okay, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. Like trust that the COVID era will end and keep going. And so that was nice to like just know within myself that when everything stopped. Yes, that's right. Because if someone is going to do something else with their life, I think COVID was a time to know that. Like I know a lot of
people who've changed careers, and professional artists who've left jobs like the Met Orchestra and Broadway playing, and because like I don't want this to happen again. I want to have a job where I know I'm going to work.
Yes.
And, we all learned that we're not essential workers. I think we've all learned that. I mean, I certainly did as a conductor. Like, boy, my job is to wave my arms around at people who aren't there for this year. And I had to learn how to adapt that to the Zooms. I had 5 rehearsals a week on Zoom with different groups at the college, choral societies. And it's a very different experience. And my whole being changed to giving the best educational experience I can with that format and the severe limitations of that. And then how to keep my communities together.
And how was your mental state through all of that? Because I know I have other conductor friends. It's like there was some depression. Like you can't hear people you can't hear voices. Like you can't interact with your students.
It's a challenge. I mean, it was the things that give me constant joy about what I do are taking everyone, making them better, and getting up there and making beautiful music happen in the moment. In that moment that we spent that rehearsal period building towards, none of that was applicable at all to COVID for a year and a half.
Yeah.
It was throughout the playbook. I did 100 virtual choir and ensemble projects with my son, who does all my tech stuff. So we learned how to become basically like TV. Media creators. Yeah. We use social media. We started the podcast as kind of a chance for me to connect with my colleagues, which I missed so desperately. And we found a lot of skills. I found a lot of skills I knew I didn't think I had. And I think we all did. I think we had to learn how to use technology as an even greater part of our lives so we can maintain our connection to our communities. Yes. I'm sure it's the same for you to keep even more in touch. And, thankfully the studio offered you a chance to put down, you can double down on the studio time instead of the performing time.
Yes.
I desperately miss it. I have my first live concert coming up on the second July 11th. It's my first big live concert. And I am like, over the moon. I can't wait. I just got hired to conduct a Beethoven 5 this summer, and I'm like, oh my God, that's going to be so exciting to get in front of my orchestra and to make music and, to feel that great music and to go toe-to-toe with Beethoven again. It's always an honor.
Wow. Where is that going to be?
Ocean Grove at the Great Auditorium. We're doing a whole Beethoven concert. It's part of the Summer Stars classical concert
Wow.
series. And I'm doing a Pops concert in Long Island at the Tillis Center. So things are starting to emerge, and it's just like a hibernation. Everyone's stretching and saying, what's possible? How are we going to make this work? And what restrictions do we have? But musicians we're a hardy lot. We'll do anything. We're like we have to wear masks. We have to stand on our head. We have to like be 10 feet away. Whatever you say. I just want to be making music again.
Gosh, I hope audiences come back. I feel like audiences will. I feel like audiences are ready to come back.
What are you hearing from your fans? I mean, I'm sure people, I can't wait to hear you back on this, to hear you back in live again. I mean, we all love our recordings, and we all love our Zoom presentations and such, but it's not the same as being in a room together.
I mean, I have done a couple of engagements and I've noticed a couple things. One thing is people are very like ready to be together. And once they are together, I don't think there's a lot of fear. Like people aren't like, oh, stay away from me, or like, let's not hug. Like, no, like you're talking about thousands of years of humanity. It's like people are meant to like hug and touch and kind of like talk animatedly close. So I think that whatever fear we've had, like, will our society function after, like, it will. We've
had disease before in the past. I love history. I watch documentaries on everything I can, and history has proven. If we go, I've had some different conversations about this with musicologists and with people who've been there. I had a Holocaust survivor on the show, who's a dear friend of mine. She's 93 and she's brilliant. And we were talking how music returned after World War II. She lived in Krakow, Poland, to survive the concentration camps, and how music got her through that, and how music became a central part of her life afterwards, and how that's how humanity has always dealt with catastrophes and catastrophic events, is that music fills that void, and that music that people have to express what they felt during COVID, and it's going to come flooding out during the next months.
Wow. Well, and you brought up Stravinsky. Like, wasn't Stravinsky also writing like at the height of the Russian Revolution?
He got out of there real quick because his music would not have been appreciated. He loved Paris. He was in Parisian society. Yeah, his music would not have been understood in Russia. Let's put it that way. So he went to Paris and he started writing shocking, salacious music. He was a real shocker, and his music caused the riot, the famous riot in 1910, when the Rite of Spring. It actually caused a physical riot, and he had to sneak out the bathroom window.
He was protesting. It was music of protest, basically.
Absolutely. And his music became like the calling card for modernity. It was like this wild music, and he loved to shock people.
Well, I think, the other thing I've noticed, and this is great for us, is that audiences are so forgiving. Like, they are so excited, kind of like not knowing what they had missed, and then it's there and it's like, So I'm definitely rusty. It's like I messed up tuning my guitar. I kind of like flubbed on some stuff. I'm just rusty. And people were just like, we're with you. I mean, they're so excited. So I think it will be a great time, like a great season of music.
Thank you for sharing that. It's like the rustiness factor. I had a rehearsal last Friday, and I got up there and I'm like, my hands are going in the wrong direction. I haven't done this in a year and a half. I was like,
I was the same.
Usually I'm like on with my metaphors, and I can say the right turn of phrase to get people excited. And I was like, bleh. And it was kind of funny, but it's going to take us all time to get back to the grind and the groove and to find our rhythm, and especially in live performance. I can't, I'm excited that we're going to get there, and I know you'll be back on the stage. What are you most excited with in the months to come? Is it the recordings being released? Is it the time to get back on the stage, touring again? What are you looking forward to the most?
I am excited about putting out this next album. So I put out an album called More Alive Volume 1 in October 2020, and this album is the follow-up. It's More Alive Volume 2, and there won't be a Volume 3, just 2. And I'm just excited about that. And there's actually, on this upcoming album, there are some songs that were supposed to come out last year, but the songs just had so much victory in them. I mean, there's a song called it's called Just Jump, and it's about like taking risks in your life and like, don't worry about the consequences, just like go for it. And I'm like, I don't think this is the right time to put out a song about not taking any precautions whatsoever in your life and just like living, with all kinds of risk. So I'm excited for those songs that were meant to come out in the beginning of 2020 to come out. Because now they've been kind of in the hopper for a while. It's like they got to come out. And I hope that the moment we're in is more suitable for them.
What can the audience expect to hear with these pieces that may be different than things you've done in the past?
I think they're just very leaning into a lot more pop production, which I did in More Alive Volume 1, but even more so in Volume 2. And I think just some of the songs are just so unabashedly like life, seize the day. And I hope people are ready. I feel like people are kind of sheepishly coming out of their little, hobbit holes.
I love Lord of the Rings, so any Lord of the Rings analogies, and I'm in. So
there you go.
So yeah, the world needs much more of your positivity, your energy, and keep on doing it. And thank you so much for sharing your thoughts today. How can people find out more about you and experience your music?
I'm online, and everywhere I am is just my name. So it's Melanie Penn, Penn. And I'm on Spotify. Instagram is a great way. I have a website, and I'm very findable on all the places you like to listen to music.
Well, I encourage everyone to get out there and find this music, and you'll be happy you did. So thank you so much, Melanie, for joining us today, and continued success in your artistic journey.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Music Matters with Jason Tramm. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube and smash that bell icon for the most up-to-date information on upcoming guests and topics. Like and share our videos. It helps our community grow. And remember, keep music alive.